Well, good morning, and today I'm going to give you another tour of what's going on at Good Soil Farms. It's been a while since I've updated everybody on what's been happening here, so I'm going to start a tour. Here we go. Out here at the north end of the property, we have some dragon fruit. This one's going crazy. We're not seeing any fruit yet. I don't know when they fruit, but we'll find out. We've got some goldenrod back here in the corner. It is coming up, and it's going to start shooting out flowers sometime soon. It's a good pollinator attractant, so we want that around. We have a mango tree that we got from a neighbor. It is looking good. Green, straight, tall. We are anxious for this thing to take off and produce some fruit. We have a mulberry tree. Actually, we have several mulberry trees. This one and that one over there. Ooh, I just saw something interesting on this. We have some residents on our mulberry tree. Looks like we got some wasps, and we're going to leave them alone. We believe wasps can be very beneficial insects because they are predators, and they don't generally consider human beings their prey. If we leave them alone, they leave us alone. So we're happy to see them here. Our underground irrigation system is fully installed. We have risers in each of about 13 different zones, so we can run water all over the fields. Here we've got a couple beds of peace lilies. They are not doing well, so this is a learning curve for us to understand if it's too much sun or soil or what it is that is going on with these peace lilies. Stephanie has moved some over there. Let's go take a look. This bed gets less sun, and these have been here for several weeks. Really, it looks like we got some nice new leaves coming up, so we hope that they do a little better over here. We've recently mulched this area. We're going to have 2 new beds right down this way. Our bromeliads are getting happier and happier in here. You can see this beautiful flower coming off of this guy. We planted him out here last fall. So these bromeliads are getting well established. Every farm has its challenges, and we are no exception. These tuberoses came up really good that we got from a neighbor. But you can see now they are struggling. We don't know if it's too much water since the rain started. That's really when they started to look bad, but we're not sure what it is. That will require some investigation, and we'll see what happens. We've got some lilies here. I forget what type of lily these are. This spring, back in April, these things shot up some beautiful red flowers, so we're looking forward to doing more of these. Back over here by the lilies, you can see the lilies to the right. Stephanie has new little starts coming. She'd have to tell you what these are, but you can see many of them have taken and are really starting to come alive. These down here at the end are rubber plants that we got from a friend. I think she had about 100% take on the cuttings that she did for these. So very excited. These guys get big and beautiful, and they'll be a neat addition to our stuff here. This is the central walkway of our garden, and ran a main line irrigation down this walkway. Pro tip on this: when you trench in irrigation and you set the line, be sure to go ahead and just fill it in before all the grass grows over it. Once the grass gets on it, it's a real pain to get back in the trench. Down here we're doing a grass kill with silage tarps on several of our gardens. This is garden 6. That's garden 5. One piece down into garden 4. You can see what happens when you leave the tarp on for a couple months. I'll go take a close look at it. We've rolled back the tarp here to drop off some mulch, and you can see the results of a couple months of this tarp being on the ground. We've got a good kill of the grass underneath. After the grass kill, we lay a layer of cardboard. Earthworms love cardboard, so the cardboard is the final weed barrier plus worm attractant. Then I make regular trips down to the county mulching facility, and I get truckload after truckload of that stuff, mulch. We spread it in a layer all over the garden, and then on top of that we'll put a more fine compost and mulch mix that we plant directly into. Stephanie started a watermelon project. In June, we started and planted these watermelons. This entire 30-foot bed is made up of only about 3 watermelon plants. Some of the watermelon plants did not do well. This one is about 3 months old, and that's all it's done so far. It's very strange how some really take off and some don't. But you can see we have some watermelon already growing good here. The bag around that is for insect protection. We are already seeing a lot of melon worm, probably a different name for it, but worm activity. You see we got a big guy right there, and we've got a lot more blossoms coming if our pests don't take over. This is our compost area, and we have several things going on here. The first thing I'll show you is this tomato plant. This was a volunteer, came up out of that compost. Early in the spring it got hit very hard with armyworms. They were just eating it right up. It recovered, it endured, it produced fruit. Right now, it is doing great. Now, it is too hot to set fruit, so we are not seeing any tomatoes on it, but it is still blossoming, and it's just a little test plot to see what happens. Because the compost area is kind of unsightly, we have planted things along the edges that will grow up and obscure what we really don't want to see. These are Mexican sunflowers, and I have topped them. I did that yesterday so that they will produce new shoots growing outside and get more bushy and look a lot more like that one in the background, which was a volunteer that came out of the compost. These are cactus plants that we planted last fall. They will grow up to be big, bushy, crazy, out of control things. One really cool thing is that they make great compost, and worms absolutely love them. I discovered that living back at our old home. What is interesting is that we planted all of these at the same time, and some of them have done fantastic. Some of them have done almost nothing. You can see the ones that I just showed you. This one here, planted at the same time. As far as we know, same conditions. It's just got 2 little ears on it. Whereas you look back at these here, for example, this one here looked exactly like that one about 8 months ago, and now it is a giant. Part of this is our learning process. Why do some things happen some way? Why do some plants grow bigger and better than others? These are the secrets we're trying to figure out. This is our first compost pile. Started this back in November when we first moved here. So it is about 10 months old. We will be using this pile as we develop and build the beds for this fall. This over here I began in about February and have been building this compost bed since then. Most of this is a mixture, layered and mixed horse manure, straw, trampled straw, leaves, chopped up leaves, and what we have in this pile is old bedding and manure that came out of the barn. We've gotten everything out of the barn and we are mixing that in as we go. This small pile right here in front of me, this is charcoal. I make this charcoal in a charcoal kiln and I sprinkle this in to the compost as I build it in very small layers. Once it becomes what they call inoculated, it becomes a very powerful element for building soil. The char itself is simply a hotel for microorganisms. Tiny little pieces of charcoal contain surface areas that are almost unimaginable, and they provide homes for beneficial organisms. Some people believe that charcoal is the secret that the Amazonians discovered years ago, thousands of years ago, down in what is today Brazil, and has enabled that soil to endure and even reproduce itself over thousands of years. I'm hoping to get similar results. Here's the south end of our compost bed. You can see these Mexican sunflowers are doing much better and are actually beginning to do their job, basically to hide the compost pile and its essential ugliness. This particular one here, I've topped all these as well, but you'll notice this one here down at the bottom, we've got lots of new shoots coming out. It's going to turn this few stalks into a giant bush, and I want all the rest of them to do that. We have a little start area going here. Stephanie has her cranberry hibiscus going. They just seem to be prolific here. I've got a little cedar tree. I've got some little pine trees that I saved from the mower. We have a couple mango trees that weren't looking too good a month ago and are now just really starting to thrive, even in their pots. These pots I just did yesterday, it's more Mexican sunflower. You can see a stalk sticking out of one of them. You just cut one of the bigger stalks, stick it in some dirt, and you should get something growing fairly quickly. Under this oak tree has got to be one of my favorite plants that we have. This little plant with those beautiful little blossoms flowers every single day. Those flowers will wilt and die away overnight, but by tomorrow morning there will be new flowers out there. When we planted this last fall, it had one leaf. I believe it's that big leaf in the back. It now has like half a dozen and more coming out all the time. Stephanie wanted some old logs that she could stick bromeliads in. So I got my drill out, I drilled some big holes in it, and she has stuck these in there. Some of the leaves don't look that great, but they have flowered while they're in there, so we'll see how that turns out. What is that?
It's called a peacock ginger.
I didn't even know what it is. It's a peacock ginger. That little favorite of ours. Thank you, resident expert. This is our shade tree near the barn. And this is my chair where I sit and ponder the meaning of life and the completeness of my ignorance when it comes to growing things. So yes, this is where I pray and ask for wisdom and knowledge that I do not have. And this is where we live. Generally 18 feet long, 7.5 feet wide, our little A-liner camper. But I want to show you something I'm doing back here. This is kind of interesting. What you hear perhaps in the background is a little buzzing. It's a fish bubbler. And what I have here looks like a very horrible and nasty brew. And in fact, by many standards, it is. However, it is black gold. This is a manure tea mixed with worm leachate, they call it. I am bubbling it with an aerator. That basically will rid it of any unwanted bacteria and encourage the production of good bacteria. There's enough air in there that worms can actually live in there. So in another few days or so, I will take this out and pour it as liquid fertilizer over our plants. This time of year is a great time of year for rain collection. We get a lot of water. This is my 350-gallon IBC tote, and it is just about full. I drained off about 15 to 20 gallons just this morning to make kind of manure, to soften up manure before I put it in the compost pile. But it'll probably be full by tomorrow. We might get rain this afternoon. A lot of people don't know that sweet peppers are perennial. And this plant has been growing for months and months. We pull off peppers out of this guy every single week. He is doing great. We are excited to grow peppers here. It will certainly be a part of our staple production in the future. Stephanie could tell you what this plant is. We think it's actually an invasive species, so we want to keep it under control. But it is a beautiful butterfly attractor. So we are happy to have it, and we promise to keep it well trimmed and under control. And this lovely bush, flowering with these beautiful red flowers, is another butterfly attractant and a hummingbird attractant. We have seen a little hummingbird here repeatedly over the last few days, so we love having it around. This is sunshine mimosa. It is a legume type ground cover that, well, I shouldn't say legume. It is a nitrogen fixing ground cover, and Stephanie is propagating it via runners into different pots. Look at that little blossom. We just think those are the cutest little blossoms. And here we have one zinnia plant. This thing has just gone crazy. Blooming, blooming, blooming for a couple months now. We're looking forward to propagating this guy. This is our new well. The actual 4-inch well casing right in the middle. Over here we have our discharge line. That is a pressure relief valve. Goes down and supplies all of our underground irrigation plumbing. It will also supply our house when we're ready for water in the house. Right now, because we do not have line electricity, I've rigged up a 240 volt connector that I plug into my generator, start the generator, flip the switch, and I have 30 gallons per minute of water coming out wherever I want. That there is a very expensive device. It is a backflow prevention device, and it isolates all of our irrigation from what will in the future be our house water supply. So that is a protective device, keeps nasty garden water from going back into good house water. And this is what the southern acre looks like today. We are in the rainy season and it looks absolutely beautiful. Right now we have one horse. That's Belle over there. She is taking a little rest this afternoon. Funny how she's laying right out in the sun. Nah, there she goes. We're getting a full, oh, we're going to get a roll. Going to get a roll and a kick. perfect timing. I love it. So that's about it for the Good Soil Farms tour for August, middle of August 2021. Hope you enjoyed this, and maybe when we get more things growing, I'll have more things to report. See you next time.